Hi guys, welcome back. In this video, we are going to discuss Module 4 of our ITN Introduction to Networks course of CCNA version 7.1. This module is going to give you an overview about the physical layer of the OSI model. So let's get going. As we discussed in our earlier modules, physical layer is the one which is situated towards the bottom of the OSI model. It is also considered as the first layer, whose main responsibility is to make sure that it converts the whatever bits it's been passed over from the data link layer into signals appropriate for transmission. So in this module, we are going to cover these topics which are quite essential for you to understand about how physical communication work. So we are going to cover here what is the purpose of the physical layer, what are the different physical layer characteristics, what do you mean by copper cabling, what are the different types of copper cabling are there, and what do you mean by fiber optic cabling, what are the primary differences between copper cabling and fiber optic cabling, why do you prefer one over the other, and what type of advantages do they offer, and finally what do you mean by wireless media, and what are the advantages and issues that regarding the wireless implementation of your network connections. So getting into it, first let us discuss about why do you need a physical layer, what is the main purpose of it. For it's quite straightforward. For any communication to happen, there has to be a physical connection that establishes between the two hosts. This physical connection can be either a wired connection or a wireless connection. That's completely dependent on the setup of the network, and also whatever the circumstances decide or the circumstances dictate. So if you want large connectivity, too many large area of the room, many users, then you go for wireless connectivity. And if you're going for a lab kind of setup where you need to install the system setup for different computers, you go for a wired setup. The main duty of the physical layer is to transport bits across the network media. It accepts a complete frame because it is situated below the data link layer. It accepts the data from the data link layer and it starts encoding this data into signals. These signals are dependent upon the media which is present below the physical layer. So this is the automatically, when the sender's physical layer encodes the data into signals and sends it across the medium, the physical layer at the receiver the main duty there is to decode these particular signals, convert them back into data and forward it up to the data link layer. So this is the main purpose of your physical layer. Now, what are the different characteristics? Usually, all the standards of the physical layer address three main functional areas. The first area is the physical components. What are the different physical components we have? And the second one is the encoding schemes. And the third one are the signaling. How do you signal these things? And the physical components are the ones which you actually see, like your hardware components, like your network interface cards, and all the other things. These physical layer standards, if you check out the diagram here, what it is going to give you an idea is the physical layer standards are implemented in hardware and are governed by many organizations. We studied about these organizations earlier, which includes your ISO, EIA, TIA, ITU-T, ANSI, IEEE. And the remaining ones, the part of the upper layers, all the upper layers are actually implemented in software and are governed by the IETF. The first functional area of the physical layer is your physical component. These components are can be we will be looking at the different types of cables and connectors in a few minutes. All of those things, the cables, connectors, devices, media, all those things comes under the physical components part of your physical layer. Whereas the encoding scheme, as I told you earlier, encoding is nothing but it converts the stream of bits into a format recognizable by the next device in the network path. The coding provides predictable patterns that can be recognized by the next device. So if I convert my data into something that has to be understood by the receiver, which can, so if I say something to you, if I want to say something to you, usually the best thing is if I show a red light, automatically the traffic will stop because the driver knows that red means stop, green means go. It's as simple as that. So there are many encoding methods used by different types of networks. Some of them are Manchester encoding, which is usually covered as part of your computer networks course. You can also see the 4B by 5B, 8B by 10B. And the only thing most important for you to understand is the signaling part comes in, like how do you denote a bit 0 or a bit 1 on the medium. Here the signaling implies that how do you convey whatever data is there to the receiver. And once again, what type of signal we use is completely dependent on the type of the medium you select. If you go for a wired medium, and if the wired medium is a copper cable, then you have to send an electric signal. And if it is an optical fiber, it is, and then you send light pulses. No, if you want to use an wireless medium, then you send an electromagnetic wave, EM waves. And there are some terms that we usually collaborate with the physical layer, and the most important one of the lot is the bandwidth. You must have come across this term many number of times. What do you mean by bandwidth? Since putting it in simple terms, bandwidth is nothing but it is the capacity at which a medium can carry data. Sometimes we also talk about digital bandwidth, which is nothing but it is the measurement of the amount of data that can flow from one place to another in a given amount of time. That means, simply put, how many bits can be transmitted in a second. Now, if anybody asks you what is your data rate or what is the bandwidth or how much you are paying for your internet connection, usually say 2 Mbps, 10 Mbps, 25 Mbps, 50 Mbps. Even in the mobile phones, you can see at the top, if you're selected the option, the download data rate, that you can see the data rate of your connection, you can see 4.5 kbps or 2 mbps or 1 mbps. That mbps is nothing but the bps stands for bits per second, m stands for megabits per second, k stands for kilobits per second, g stands for gigabits per second, t stands for terabits per second. If you can see in the table over there, it gives you a good idea about how many bits are there in a kilo. 1000 bps is nothing but it's 1 kilo, 1 kbps. And if you have 10 power 6 bps, it is nothing but 1 mbps. And if you have 10 power 9 bits per second, then it is equivalent to 1 gigabit per second. And if you have 10 power 12 bits per second, you can go up to, this is called as, or in other terms it is called as 1 tbps. Now, how do you determine what actually defines this bandwidth? How do you regulate it? It's a simple thing. It's laws of physics, the type of media that you're using. There are many factors that actually come into play when you talk about the bandwidth. We'll discuss it in the further slides. There are other terms which are actually compared to bandwidth. There are something called as latency. Latency is nothing but this is the amount of time, including delays, for data to travel from one point to another point. Simple terms, latency is nothing but the delay, the time it takes. Throughput is the measure of the transfer of bits across the media over a given period of time. It is very much similar to bandwidth, but frankly speaking, bandwidth is the maximum data rate that you can get. Throughput is the actual data rate. If you can ask me why there is a difference between throughput and bandwidth, there are numerous things that actually affect your bandwidth. The bandwidth, if you are saying my bandwidth is 10 mbps, you will always not get 10 mbps. Maybe the medium is shared, or maybe the medium cannot support the speed. So throughput is your actual data rate, whereas the good put is the data or the useful data that is being transmitted. So you take away all the packet overheads and other stuff. Whatever data, the actual data that is being transmitted is called your good put. Good put is also one good measurement to find out the efficiency of the network. Within a given period of time, if you find out what is the actual usable data that you are sending from one point to another point, that is called as good put. Bandwidth is the maximum amount of data that you can send. Throughput is the actual data that is being sent. Good put is the usable data that you are sending. So these three terms are some of the ways where you can actually measure the efficiency of a network, where you can talk about the efficiency of a network. Now let's go into the different types of cables. Frankly speaking, the media of physical layer are actually divided into two categories. One of them is a wired category and the other one is the wireless category. The wired category one, we also call it as guided media, and the wireless category one, we usually call it as unguided medium. The name guided medium comes from the fact that in the guided medium, the signal always sticks to the cable, or it is bound to the cable itself. It can't go beyond the cable. That is why you call it as bounded medium. Once again, in case when you're talking about wired medium or bounded media, we can categorize them into two parts. One of them is copper cabling and the other one is optical fiber. In copper cable, if you talk about this, there are many characteristics, and it is one of the most common medias that you see. Even when you go in your homes, you can see the LAN ports over in each and every room that are being installed nowadays. Even in the classrooms, in the labs, almost all the media that you see are copper cables. Of course, optical fibers are very good. We will discuss why we don't see optical fibers in your normal day-to-day home usage and why they are preferred as backbones. If you see here, copper cabling, as I said, it is one of the most common type of cabling. The straightforward answer why copper cabling is preferred to optical fiber is because of the cost. It's very cheap and it is durable. It is easy to install. And if you see, there are some limitations that that are actually given to the copper cabling, the limitations that it faces. One of it is the attenuation. The longer the electrical signals have to travel, the weaker they get. So the distance is inversely proportional to the strength. So if you want to travel it for a longer distance, the signal may lose its strength. And also there are two factors that impact the efficiency or the the capacity of the copper cabling. One of them is called as EMI, also known as electromagnetic interference, and RFI, radio frequency interference, and something also called as crosstalk. So these are all the limitations which impact the efficiency of the copper cabling. And in order to overcome this, what we usually do is we place a limit to the length of the cable so that we don't get that much attenuation for the signal. Attenuation is nothing but loss of the signal strength. And sometimes we can try to mitigate the RFI and EMI by using metallic shielding and grounding. And sometimes the most common way that you see is to mitigate crosstalk by twisting the opposite circuit pair wires. I'll tell you more about the twisted pairs, why they're twisted. So the main reason behind twisting of the copper cable is pretty simple. It is to mitigate the crosstalk that happens. So if you have two wires that are parallel to one another, each might act as an antenna and attract the signals from the other, which leads to loss of signal. So in order to reduce that, what we usually do is we twist them together just like a DNA molecule, helical pattern. I'll show you more. So this is what, and this is the most widely used media across the whole world, and it is called as UTP. And UTP stands for unshielded twisted pair. As the name itself suggests, if you can see the diagram over there, it contains of actually 8 cables, 4 pairs. Each pair has got its own twist length, and it is the most commonly found media across the buildings or offices or even schools, hospitals, anywhere you go. This is a cheaper media simply because it is cheap and it is very easy to install. It is also durable. And we have RJ45 connectors. Once again, the connector is also cheap, so you can buy it anywhere and get it done, and you can crimp it easily. So, and the main purpose of UTP is to interconnect hosts with intermediary network devices. If you see the construction of UTP, once again, you find that there are 4 pairs of cables. Each pair is twisted. And on top of these 4 pairs, you have an outer jacket or a plastic jacket, which is shown here. This is the outer jacket, which is blue in color. It covers the inner cables from physical damage. And this twisting is done. You can see here the twists are actually quite different. The number of twists per inch length is different of each cable. This allows us to make sure that the crosstalk does not happen, or we can limit the crosstalk to a maximum extent by doing these things. So color clodic plastic insulation electrically isolates the wires from each other and identifies each pair. And also you can see that each and every pair is of different color. The reason why we have these colors is how you connect to the RJ45 connector. I'll show you that. And the next other variant of the copper cable is your shielded twisted pair, STP. Compared to UTP, this is far more expensive because rather than just having one plastic coating on top, each and every pair, if you see the diagram over here, you can check it out. See, each and every pair is covered with a separate insulation on top, each and every pair. So there are 4 pairs. All the 4 pairs are covered with 4 different types of insulation. And on top, there is once again another cover to cover these things. And on top, there is a plastic coating. It is quite bulky and it is very expensive, but it is actually best suited to the situations or to the environments where they are harsh. You might get abrasions or something which might affect the cable. In those cases, we go for STP. And if you see we usually call it as mesh or foil, and this actually saves these cables from EMI and RFI. Please make a note that STP is far better with regards to the bandwidth and the attenuation characteristics. UTP does not provide you that much protection, whereas STP provides you a very good protection against EMI and RFI. But because of the expensive nature and the bulky nature, it is not that flexible to move this cable around, and you don't find it many installations. Usually, people tend to go with UTP itself. And the third variant of your copper cable is the coaxial cable. This coaxial cable, the best example for you or for anyone to see is the cable TV. And if you see a set-top box, if you connect, there is a wire behind its back. It is nothing but coaxial cable. The name coaxial cable is because it consists of two conductors. If you once again check out the diagram, this is your central copper conductor, which is slightly bigger in diameter, and this is your second conductor, which these two are actually differentiated or separated from one another using the plastic insulation. This is your plastic insulation. This is called as a woven braid or mesh, and these connectors are connected in such a way that the inner copper conductor goes here and the outer one is actually connected to this cylindrical type of thing. We use BNC connectors, bayonet, Neil, concealment, or British naval connectors to connect these things. The coaxial cable's main purpose is to connect cable TV, and also we can use it for wireless installations where this cable is used to attach the antennas to your wireless devices. So this is regarding your coaxial cable. Of the three copper cablings that we use, UTP is the most widely used one because of the inexpensive nature and its reliable nature. And this is your UTP cabling, as I said, UTP has 4 pairs of color coded copper wires twisted together, and on top of it you find a plastic sheet. The reason why we actually define this is because it's the cancellation property. Each wire in a pair of wires uses the opposite polarity. One wire is negative and the other wire is positive. They are twisted together and the magnetic fields effectively cancel each other and also the outsides EMI and RFI. Here, as I told you earlier, the variation in twists per foot in each wire is twisted a different amount, which helps prevent crosstalk amongst the wires in the cable. I told you earlier that twisting is actually done to reduce the crosstalk, and because there are 4 wires which are placed together into a single plastic cable, the twists of each of these cables or each of these pairs should be different from one another. Otherwise, once again, you have the problem of the crosstalk. And these are the different categories. Currently we are using category 6 and category 5. Some places some places still use category 7 also. And if you see, the standards for UTP are established by TIA or EIA, and these are the elements that usually they standardize the cable types, cable lengths, what are the connectors that are to be used, how they are terminated at the connectors, what are the different testing methods. And the cables, the UTP are actually categorized based on the bandwidth they carry, based on the nature of how do I put it, the cost. Category 6 is the currently used one, which actually supports even your gigabit ethernets, which can carry up to the Gbps speeds. Okay, and category 3 is no longer used. It has become obsolete now, and in some installations we still find category 5E and category 6, and where you need even more bandwidth and even sturdy nature of cable, there you can actually even go for category 7 or 8. Okay, and this is why there is a color coded insulation, or the wires are color coded. If you can see here, there are 3 different types of cables that we use. Even in the packet tracer, when I shown you the videos, at the bottom you see a straight through and a crossover cable. The straight through is the one which is purely black in color, and the crossover is the one which is not, it's a dotted black line. Okay, the main difference is if both ends of the cable are connected or terminated using these standards. If you see, this is the 560A standard and this is the 560B standard. The difference is how the cables are connected to the pins in the RJ45. This is your RJ45 connector, registered jack 45 connector, and how do you connect these 4 or the 8 cables to these connector actually defines whether it is a T560A or T560B. And if you connect both the sides to 560A or 560B, then we call it as a Ethernet straight through cable. And these cables are actually used to connect hosts to the network devices. And if one end is a 560A and the other end is a 560B, then we call it as crossover cables. Usually we use crossover cables to connect host to host, switch to switch, or rotor to rotor. But now this has become obsolete because of a new feature that's been added, something called as Auto MDIX feature, where they can actually sense which cable is connected, what type of which pairs of cables to use for data transmission. There is another cable which we call it as rollover cable, which is Cisco's proprietary cable. It connects the host serial port to router or switch console port using an adapter. So this is how you define why we have a straight through cable, or which is a straight through cable, or which is a crossover cable. It's completely dependent on how the 8 pins are connected, or how the 8 cables are connected to the 8 pins of your RJ45 connector. If you see, this is only one change. If these 2 are connected to pair 3 here, and the oranges are coming to pair 2 here, this is not much big difference. It's only slight difference. And once again, crossover cables have become obsolete simply because of the auto MDX feature, which actually has got the ability to sense the cable type and to find out which pairs of the cables are used for data transmissions. Now let's go for the fiber optic cable. We have learned about copper cables. I told you about copper cables suffer from EMI, RFI, and attenuation, where fiber optic cable, it is not made up of copper, it is made up of glass or some kind of plastic, and it is also not commonly found as you see UTP everywhere because it's expensive. The expensive nature of optical fiber does not just come from the cable itself, it also comes from the type of connectors we use and also the technicians that are involved for installing fiber optic cables. UTP installation is very easy, anybody with the basic networking knowledge can do it, but working with optical fiber requires expertise and skillful engineers. So, but optical fiber's main advantage is the amount of bandwidth that it can support. Theoretically, it can support up to Tbps, but we don't have it still. It can support up to Tbps, and it is very resistant to the attenuation factor, atmospheric conditions. Even the EMI or RFI has got very little impact on the optical fiber's transmission. We see it transmits data over long distances and at higher bandwidths than any other networking media, which makes, because of these factors, it actually makes the optical fiber the best candidate for a backbone connectivity. Backbones are nothing but which connect your ISPs to the junction boxes or those kind of things, which can carry high bandwidths. As I told you, they are made up of flexible, extremely thin strands of very pure glass. And because optical fibers use light pulses, you need to have a light source. There are now two light sources available. One of them is an LED and the other one is a laser. LEDs are cheap and but they don't have the high capacity to support they don't have the capacity to support high bandwidths, whereas lasers are very expensive but they can support high bandwidths and at greater speeds and for long distances also. And if you see here, the optical fibers are actually divided into two categories. One of them is a single mode fiber, the other one is a multi-mode fiber. If you check it out here, in the single mode fiber, it has got very small core. It has got a very small core and it uses expensive lasers and it actually goes for long distance applications. Frankly speaking, a single mode fiber can carry data, very high data rates for up to ranges of 2 kilometers. And if you go for the multi-mode fiber, it has got the core diameter slightly larger. If you check it out, this is the single mode fiber has got less diameter and the multi-mode will have more diameter, and it also has got the capability of transmitting multiple paths rather than a single path of light. In a single mode fiber, you only have single straight line, only one pulse, only one light pulse will go, whereas in the multi-mode fiber you can have multiple light pulses traveling at the same time. So these LEDs are used, LEDs transmit at different angles, and it can also support up to 10 Gbps or 550 meters. And here we speak about a term called as dispersion, which refers to the spreading out of a light pulse over time. Increased dispersion means increased loss of signal. Our MMF has got greater dispersion than SMF, with the maximum cable distance for MMF is 550 meters. So MMF are used for short distance communications, and whereas your single mode fibers are used for long distance communications. And also the SMF can support higher bandwidths. And where we use fiber optic cables, there are basically 4 different types of industries that make use of fiber optics today. I mean, the applications are not just confined to these 4. You can have a broad range of applications too. One of them is the enterprise networks, as I just told you, used for backbone cabling applications and interconnecting infrastructure devices. The other one is the fiber to home, FTTH. These provide an always-on broadband services to home and small businesses, which is still in the ascendancy now. Most of the people are using diesel lines, and some of them are having optical fibers directly into the offices where they can distribute it. And the third one is the long-haul networks. Once again, a long-haul networks can maybe you are talking about connections between 2 different cities or 2 different countries. And last one is the submarine cable networks. These are actually used to provide reliable, high-speed, high-capacity solutions capable of surviving in harsh undersea environments and up to transoceanic distances. Imagine a cable running from America to, USA to India, or from India to Australia, inside the ocean. So in harsh environmental conditions, optical fibers are used because they are very much how do I put it? They are very good to withstand any kind of atmospheric conditions. The atmospheric conditions doesn't have much impact on the optical fibers. So these are the different fiber optic connectors that we are talking about. And if you see, there are primarily four different types of connectors that we use. An optical fiber connector terminates the end of an optical fiber. If you see, as I said, the four different connectors are, one of them is the ST connector. We also call it as straight tip connector. SC stands for subscriber connector. LC stands for lucent connector, and a duplex multimode LC connector. If you see that the differentiation is simple. The first ones and primarily used ones are your ST connectors, which actually uses a twist on and twist off bayonet style mechanism, just like your BNC connector used for coaxial cables. The SC connectors are sometimes referred to as the square connector or the standard connector. They are widely adopted LAN and WAN connectors that uses a push-pull mechanism. You simply push it in, plug it in. And the LC simplex connectors are a smaller version of the SC connectors. These things, as I said, you don't find most of these connectors available outside, just like your RJ45 connectors. You need to have expertise to be used or to work with optical fibers, because splicing them or connecting them properly requires expertise. If there is if any problem, the entire you might not get proper data transmission at all. The other ones we also call them as patch cords. So the fiber patch cords are required for interconnecting infrastructure devices. The use of color distinguishes between single mode and multi-mode patch cords. A yellow jacket is for single mode fiber cables, and the orange one, if you can see, or the aqua, is for multi-mode fiber cables. So based on the color, you can clearly distinguish whether you are using a single mode or a multi-mode patch cord. And also check it out in this diagram, where you can see the different patch cords are having different connectors connected to them. You can also observe those things, what type of connectors are being used. So it begs the difference. Now we come to the point where we have to understand what type of cable to use for what type of connection. And if you check it out, the particular table over there, it gives you a small comparison between the UTP cabling and the fiber optic cabling. If you can see, the UTP cabling right now with the current categories going on, you can go up to 10 Gbps. Even with the fiber optic cabling, you can go up to 100 Gbps. Distance, fiber optic cable is an easy winner there. It can go up to 2 kilometers easily. The immunity part, UTP, it's less, whereas fiber optic cabling immunity is very high, even to you EMF, EMI, RFI, electrical hazards, all those things. Fiber optic is the best. Whereas the media and connector cost of fiber optic cabling, it's very expensive. UTP is damn cheap. The RJ45 connector is also very cheap, and also the installation skills, the expertise required for UTP cabling is very less when you compare it to the fiber optic cabling. And the best thing about fiber optic for me, from my side, is it is very, very difficult to break into the optical fiber. That, in a sense, like, you cannot hijack the session. With UTP, it's easy to tap into it and to get steal information. For an optical fiber, it is practically impossible. So fiber optic cabling provides you the best security, and which is a very good motivation for a lot of the large corporate offices to go for optical fiber for their network media. Now, let's go for the wireless media. We have talked until now about wired media, copper cables, and optical fibers. So copper cables, we have three different types. Just to summarize, copper cables, we have three categories. One of them is UTP, the other one is STP, and the other one is your coaxial cable. Optical fibers, single mode fiber and multi-mode fiber. Now let's talk about wireless media. You must have seen everybody current modern day does have a Wi-Fi network in their home, right? So the why so much has so why wireless media has become so popular is because of its ease to usage and the ability to connect more number of hosts in a home. Imagine if you have like 3 or 4 mobile phones, 4 or 5 laptops, or 3 to 5 computer systems. A wireless router can do the job very easily. And if you don't have a wireless router, if you want to install an Ethernet LAN, you have to purchase switches, you have to run the cables across the length of your home, which looks very ugly, and it is not efficient at all. So if you see here, though wireless is very good for all these things, it actually uses your radio and micro frequencies. And the best thing about it is you can go mobile, you can move your laptop around, you can move your phones around, you can carry your devices around your house, still you are getting connected. There is no wire hanging from your device. Whereas the advantages of wireless are good, it also comes with certain disadvantages or limitations. some of the prominent limitations of wireless networks are, if you see, the first one is the coverage area. Sometimes even you have a very good wireless router, you might not get coverage in some parts of the home because of the characteristics of the thickness of the walls and also atmospheric conditions. Something you will be impacted. Second one is the interference. So wireless is susceptible to interference and can be disrupted by many common devices. So if they are working in the same frequency range, you will definitely get an interference from the same device. The third one is the security. The biggest factor or the biggest thing with wireless is it's not at all secure. Anybody who has a proper receiver can receive the signals or can get the signals and can enter into the network. It's not a physical strand. It's not a physical connection where it is guided or it is bound to that media. It's open for everyone. And the last one is the shared medium part. Because it's a shared medium, everybody can use it, the same thing. And if everybody is to want to use the same network at the same time, obviously if you will find a decrease in the bandwidth that is being provided to you guys. Okay, so these are some of the criteria. For me, the most important limitation of wireless is your security and the interference part. Shared medium, if you have good enough bandwidth support, it should be okay. Coverage area, if you plan it properly, if you plan where to place the access points at which places, you do a topology of the area that you want to cover, you can place the access points strategically so that you can get good coverage access across. But for the security part and interference part, it's a different issue altogether. There are different types of wireless media available for us, and the IEEE and the telecommunications industry standard for wireless data communications cover both the data link and the physical layers. I have shown you the earlier diagram. In each of the standards, physical layer specifications dictate for wireless medium. These are the different specifications that have to be taken note of. First one is the data to radio signal encoding methods. What type of encoding methods are there? They have to be standardized. Frequency and the power of transmission, signal reception and decoding requirements, and how the antennas are designed and constructed. There are different ways. I don't want to go in depth about these things. These things are actually part of your digital communication techniques. If you want, you can go on the internet, search for these things, you will get heaps of information. Whereas there are the different wireless standards over here. The first one is the most common one that we use, Wi-Fi. Also, I mean, it's wireless fidelity, most commonly called as Wi-Fi. It is the 802.11 standard of IEEE. Also, we call them as WLAN. The second one is called as Bluetooth. Its standard number given by IEEE is 802.15, and it is also a standard for wireless personal area network. The third one is WiMAX, Worldwide Interoperability for Microwave Access, which uses a point to multi-point topology to provide broadband wireless access. We are actually waiting for this to come out. And if it gets, it will solve some of the problems that are with your Wi-Fi. And the last one is your Zigbee. Once again, the standard given is IEEE 802.15.4, which is low data rate, low power consumption communications, primarily for IoT communications. You know what, Internet of Things communications are for applications that we use. Zigbee is one of the things where they can communicate with one another because it uses less power. With IoT, the main problem is your battery drainage. So because they have really small batteries, you have to make sure for sensors and stuff, the power consumption has to be less too. So coming to the end, what the common wireless data implementation is enabling devices to connect wireless to via LAN. Simply saying, if you have a wireless router, if you have your laptop or your phone sitting, you want it to communicate it directly without the need for a wire. So for that, the most important thing that you see is your wireless access point, or we call them as APs, access points. Your wireless router is a kind of access point which actually sends and receives the signals. It is the point to which all your devices can connect wirelessly to. Now, for this to happen, your router or your device must also have a wireless NIC adapter, network interface card. If you don't have a wireless adapter in your device, you cannot communicate with the access point. So there are a number of WLAN standards I just shown you. There are a number of even in the Wi-Fi 802.11 we have A, B, G, N, AC, AD. Right now we are actually using AC and AD technologies, and maybe 2 years, 3 years down the line, all the devices that are purchased use 802.11 N standard. The standards nowadays are actually supporting up to 100 Mbps, 500 Mbps speeds. So it's wireless LANs have come a long way from the earliest 10 Mbps, 1 Mbps speeds. As I said, the best thing about WLAN is the cost saving. As I told you, You need not purchase a wire and a switch for each and every device you want to connect to. Even you have 20 devices, just one router, purchase one router, that's fine. Purchase a Wi-Fi router and it can seamlessly connect all the 20 devices. So the cost of implementing a network has again reduced to bare minimum. And also the best thing is host mobility. You can move around. You need not bother about whether you are having a wire that is long enough to move around or not. Nope, nothing of that sort. So these are the two primary advantages of WLAN. But also, as I said, the limitation for WLAN is its security. So the network administrator must develop and apply stringent security policies and process to protect WLANs from unauthorized access and also damage. So this is regarding your physical layer. As I said, the physical layer's main duty is to convert the data that is being passed by the data link layer into signals for transmission. So for this to happen, it is the signals, how we are transmitting, what type of signal we are transmitting, it is completely dependent on the type of the media that we choose. We can go either for wired media or wireless media. Even in the wired media, you can either go for UTP or you can go for optical fiber. So if it's a copper medium, you will be transmitting an electrical signal. Either if you are using an optical fiber, then you convert into electrical pulses and you will be transmitting it. And if you are using a wireless medium, then you have to convert into the electromagnetic signals. So this is regarding your physical layer. So guys, and I will be posting the videos about how do you connect and what are the different types of connectors of the packet tracer activities. So check it out. Thank you very much. Have a good day.